Thank you, guys. All right.
He's great.
The American Spectator lives right here. Well, hello, PLC. This is great, isn't it? Was Jesse fabulous last night or what? Wow. He was great. I particularly liked his Trump stories. And I have a few myself, and just for time reasons, I'm going to tell you only one that I think you'll find amusing. So I think it was November of 1919, I and two of my colleagues from the American Spectator get invited to come see him in the Oval Office and chat and do interview-style stuff. So we go, and we're arranged in front of the Resolute desk, and we're talking away for about an hour or so. And then when it's done, he stands up, and he says, "You've been in the Oval Office before?" I said, "Yes, sir, when I worked for President Reagan." He says, "Well, come back here. I want to give you something." So I had not been back there, but I knew what it was. There's a short hallway when you come from behind this desk. There's a door to the left. There's a short hallway, and at the end of that is a conference room that's very vanilla. It could be in any office, and that's where presidents tend to go to get out of the formality of the Oval Office. And he said Obama used to sit back there and watch basketball games. And right before you get there, there's a little windowless room where President Trump stores gifts that he gives out. He gave me, God bless him, a silver tray for my mother with the presidential seal and his signature. But as we're walking down the short hallway, he stops, turns back to us, takes a half step into the little windowless room, points inside, raises his eyebrows, and says, "Bill and Monica." You can't make it up. Of course, we all burst out laughing. I'll never think of that room the same ever again. So, let me introduce our friend Rose Tennent. She is, as you know, a radio host, political pundit, author, and speaker. She is the host of Rose Unplugged on 1320 WJAS, the Talk of Pittsburgh. She served as the Pennsylvania State Finance Director for the 2020 Trump Victory Finance Committee and is on the advisory board of the Women for Trump Coalition. She is a longtime friend of mine. She is also the only woman substitute for someone named Sean Hannity on his radio show, where she always does a fabulous job. So without further ado, let me introduce my friend Rose Tennent.
Good morning. You know, I love how the media asks Joe Biden all the tough questions, right? Like a couple of weeks ago, he was coming out of a restaurant and he had an ice cream cone and they said, "President Biden, what flavor is it?" And he said, "It's chocolate chip." And it sounded like When Harry Met Sally. Oh. That's weird. It was just weird. I was embarrassed for them. And in the long-standing tradition of the fake news, that one question that seems to come up a lot, boxers or briefs, Biden answered, "Depends." Joe Biden's like that browser that you've got open on your computer. It's like there's 17 tabs open, right? 16 are frozen, and then you can't figure out where the music's coming from. What's going on? What's happening? I have to tell you, I had a really big disappointment last year. I learned that my aunt voted for Joe Biden. I know, and let me tell you something. I was so upset. I promise you, I am never visiting her grave again. Not ever. That's it, I'm done. They asked me to talk about the future of talk radio. And you know, it's interesting because we do mourn the passing of the greatest talk radio host ever, and that's Rush Limbaugh. 20-some years ago, I became very good friends with Sean Hannity, and we've kept a great relationship throughout the years. At one point during my career, I was having difficulty hearing, and it's probably because I have the headsets cranked up so high. And I remember just mentioning it in passing to Sean Hannity. Well, within 24 hours, I got a phone call from Rush Limbaugh, and he offered me his doctors. He offered me any help he could be and assistance with my hearing issues. And I thought, wow, what a great, sweet man. Didn't know me from Adam, but reached out to me. And that was the kind of person he was and remained, because afterwards we stayed in touch quite a bit back and forth. I found him to have a great sense of humor, and I love how the left hates it. They absolutely hate it when he would talk about how smart he was or how he could do this with half his brain tied behind his back. That was great humor. But they hated that. And yet, he was such a kind and generous man. He really was. So God bless Rush Limbaugh, because he's the one that got talk radio started. He was the leader. He's a pioneer. And so when the question comes up, what is the future of talk radio? Well, I can tell you from personal experience what it might have been at one time. It has changed dramatically, I believe, personally. And I will give you a little bit of background, and we'll circle back to why I believe it has changed. Saki, you got it. Let's start with 245 years ago. And I'm going to use this if this is okay. This July, we are going to celebrate 245 years of independence. Thank God. Thank God for the strong, the courageous, the very brave men that gave us that independence. When they did so because they came from a country where they lived under tyrannical rule, where they were told how they should worship, whether they should worship, what jobs they should perform. Does that sound familiar to anybody here in Pennsylvania? After this last year with Wolf? They lived under tyrannical rule, and they wanted so desperately to get out from under it. See, our forefathers believed that there was greatness in every one of us. See, they came from a country that said if your bloodline allowed it, if your birth allowed it, you could be great. But they believed that all of us could be great, and all that was necessary to unleash that greatness was freedom. So they came here and they wanted to establish freedom. And they knew that what they were going to do, they would never fully appreciate themselves. They knew that what they were doing, for the most part, was for future generations, for people they would never know, faces they would never see, names they would never call out. What they did for all of us in this room. 245 years ago, they got together and they were debating. They all knew that what they wanted was freedom. They knew that what they came here for, what they sacrificed for, was freedom. But there was some hesitation in the room. And who can blame them, right? Because what they were doing was putting a target on their back. They told us that they knew they were sacrificing their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. Can you blame them for the hesitation? At one point during the deliberations, before they signed that declaration that would free them from tyrannical rule, allow them to live the lives they believed they were meant to live, at one point, John Witherspoon got up and he said, I got to tell you something. And he gave this very passionate speech. And in it he said, there is a tide in the affairs of men. Do you perceive it now before you? To hesitate is to commit to your own slavery. When he was done, everyone in that room signed the Declaration of Independence. In some history books, if they even talk about it at all now, but these are older history books will tell you that many of the men in that room, now remember, these are very strong men, courageous men, very brave men. History books will tell you that some of them dropped to their knees in prayer because they knew that man did not give them freedom. Because if he did, he could take it away, just like we've seen here in this state. But they knew that liberty came from God and God alone. God is the author of our liberty. And so they were on their knees in prayer. And history books tell us that others wept openly. Those strong men wept. And I believe they wept because they knew what it was like to live under the type of ruler they were living under, and now they were going to be free. And yet, I believe if they could look at us now, if they could see us now, they would weep once again, because we were once free and have become once again slaves to tyrannical rule. So here we have this opportunity. Oh, you're not going to believe this. Are you ready? My heel was stuck in that crack right there. I didn't think I was ever getting out of there. So they would weep if they saw where we have been this past year, now where we are now with this administration, where we can see clearly that our rights have been taken away from us. You know, we talk about talk radio. How long do we have before we are canceled? And that's a serious question. Censorship in this country. This is a place where I never thought we would be. I had someone from Epic Times on, and you know, these are many people that work at Epic Times that established the Epic Times came from China. And I had one of them on my program. And I said, how is it that the Chinese people right now, they don't fight for that freedom? How is it that they are not longing for that freedom? And she said, you know what? They have lived under communist rule for so long, they don't even have a concept of freedom. Can you imagine not even being able to conceive freedom? We cannot lose that concept of freedom. It is up to us to fight for that freedom, for that republic. You know, when I was working for the campaign, I traveled the state from one end to the other, and I spoke to a lot of groups, and I kept saying, this is our battle right now. This is the battle. And then, like you, I was very depressed and disappointed by the election results. I didn't like what I saw. It was very devastating because I know what I saw in the state of Pennsylvania. But I'll tell you something. That was nothing compared to then how we all felt after January 6th. After January 6th, we saw that being labeled a patriot, being called a patriot, calling ourselves a patriot was something bad. It was wrong to be a patriot. I was there on January 6th. I did not go to the Capitol. I was in the front row at the rally with Diamond and Silk, Jeffrey Lord, and everyone else that worked so hard on the Trump campaign. I had to leave halfway through because I had a few media hits, and Hannity's show was one of them. So when I got back to the hotel that night, people were crying in the lobby. They were crying in the elevator. They were crying in the halls because 100,000 people went to D.C. not to rush the Capitol, but to show their support, not even for one election or one man, but to show their support for the Republic. And the way it was portrayed, the way they were made to feel afterwards was devastating. I believe that our battle is right now. I believe after that, so many of us felt so discouraged and so depressed. I wanted to walk away from politics for a while, but I quickly realized and remembered that this battle is worth fighting. Because like our founding fathers, we now are doing this for future generations. We enjoyed our freedom. We loved our freedom. We grew in our freedom. What we do now will determine whether or not generations that come after us will also enjoy their freedom. So let's go forward. 245 years ago, they signed that Declaration of Independence. Where did they do that? That's right here in this state. The state of Pennsylvania, where freedom was born, where 13 colonies became the United States of America. It was in this state. 11 years later, some of the very same men got together. 56 delegates were meeting in Philadelphia again at Independence Hall. Now think about this. Independence Hall on Main Street in the main area of Philadelphia, right? That's where everybody had to go, where they had to go buy for their livestock. They had to go buy for their farm. They would go and have a drink, go to the post office. Everything was happening there. And they knew that those months that those delegates were meeting behind those doors was going to determine what their future would be. Can you imagine? They're walking back and forth and wondering, when is this going to be done? When will we know what our future is? Then finally, we're told on that final day of deliberations, Benjamin Franklin came out, and we're told that a woman stopped him. Of course, it was a woman, right? We had to know, just have to know. And she said, well, doctor, what have we got? A monarchy or a republic? And he said, a republic if you can keep it. That today should be a reminder. We have a republic still. It is hanging by a thread, but we still have a republic. This is a battle worth fighting for. This is a battle for our children and then their children. It's a battle for those whose faces we will never see, whose names we will never call out. We do it for them. I ask you, are you with me? Is it all hands on deck right now? I believe this is a battle of a lifetime. This battle may be every bit as great as the Revolutionary War because we are fighting for the same thing. We are fighting for liberty. And this battle, I believe, begins on our knees. So thank you, all of you. I appreciate it. We're in this together. Let's do it. Let's win it. God bless. Never will heal.